qualities made the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, a good leader. Professor Joel Hayward's dynamic book, The Leadership of Muhammad, A Historical Reconstruction, gives an excellent insight into the life of the Prophet Muhammad as a leader based on historical evidence. I recently did an intensive weekend course with the professor and learned so much about the Prophet as a person, and everything was verified by fact and evidence. Many of the books in our tradition written about the Prophet are hagiographical and from a Muslim perspective. Joel Hayward's book, however, appeals to a Muslim and non-Muslim audience in the sense that it explains events from the Prophet's life with a thorough explanation and evidence of the sources. He gives a thorough overview of historical critical methods and explained things like bias and objectivity, the use of primary and secondary sources, the context that we're looking at, the manipulation of evidence and myth making, and also looking at archaeology and coins. The book describes the leadership of the Prophet, showing traits that made him not only a good person, but someone who possessed the skills of a great leader. Professor Hayward explains that the Prophet Muhammad was an exceptional person who was highly intelligent, resourceful, and strategic. The Prophet's success is evident in all his achievements in his life. After all, in his lifetime, we know that he established Islam as a political and religious force. He imparted the Quran to us. He left behind a sunnah for Muslims to follow, and now 1.8 billion Muslims, a quarter of the world, follow Islam and revere him. Professor Hayward emphasizes that we need to be really mindful of anachronisms when studying any part of history, including the life of the Prophet, because we can't possibly use a modern lens and make comparisons or judgments on 7th century Arabia, which was a completely different time and society. The Prophet was a strategic leader. He had a clear mission of what he wanted to do, which is spreading the knowledge of Islam, and he used insight and tactics. He planned and he phased delivery of his objectives. The Prophet created a new, tolerant, monotheistic community where everybody was welcome. This tolerance embodied by the Prophet Muhammad is an early example of diversity and inclusion. The Prophet drew up and signed treaties of cooperation and peace, and this was a huge deal in a society where war was commonplace. An accusation normally presented to Muslims is that their religion is one of war and violence. In fact, Islam is a religion of justice. It is not a pacifistic faith, but when the Prophet fought wars, it was for logical reasons, and the war that was fought by Muslims was always just, and the appropriate force was used with minimum deaths. The deaths were of military people and not civilians, including women, children, and older people. And prisoners of war were to be treated with dignity. Professor Hayward lays out the justification of war from the Prophet's teachings. So war would be fought for two reasons. One would be that it had to have just cause, and the other was that it had to have the right intentions. The book goes into more details about the leadership style of the Prophet, including him as a shepherd, where he looked after his flock, was responsible, he consulted, he was diplomatic, he upskilled people, and he was aware of the responsibility that a leader holds and the duty that comes with it. The Prophet was there to impart his knowledge and leave his example, but he also wanted people to use their own judgment in the absence of finding the answers that they were looking for in the Quran or the Sunnah. The book paints such an inspiring and holistic picture of the Prophet that it's much easier to understand him as a human being as well as a messenger of God. The example that we have been left with by the Prophet is there to encourage us in every action of our lives, even through the low points, of which the Prophet had many. Professor Hayward is to be commended on his thorough research and analysis, using critical historical method to tell the story of the Prophet in a way that resonates with readers of all backgrounds. It really was a joy to read and has quickly become one of my favourite books and one that is much referenced. So I hope you give it a try. I'll leave the details of where to buy it in the link below. Thank you.